Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the massive glass doors of the Galactic Medical Consortium headquarters on Meridian Prime, her worn leather medical bag clutched tightly in her hand. The building stretched impossibly high into the purple sky, its crystalline walls pulsing with soft blue light that seemed to mock the simple human technology she carried within her bag. The reception hall buzzed with activity as beings from across the galaxy hurried past her. Tall, graceful Altarians, with their silver skin and elongated limbs, moved like liquid mercury. Short, stocky Cronin physicians with their rocky exterior clicked across the polished floors on stone feet. Ethereal Vexians floated past, their translucent forms shimmering as they communicated through patterns of light that danced across their bodies. Sarah felt every eye in the hall turn toward her as she approached the reception desk. The Altarian receptionist looked down at her with barely concealed disdain, her large silver eyes reflecting Sarah's image in duplicate. "State your business, primitive," the receptionist said, her voice carrying the musical quality that all Altarians possessed. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen from Earth. I'm here to present my research on infectious disease treatment to the Medical Council," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady despite the insult. A ripple of laughter spread through the nearby crowd. Several Cronin doctors turned from their conversation to stare at her, their boulder-like faces creased in what passed for amusement among their species. "Did she say research?" one of the Cronins rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "What could a human possibly teach us about medicine?" The Altarian receptionist's silver lips curved into what might have been a smile. "I'm afraid there's been some mistake. Humans were only granted observer status in the consortium last year. You're not qualified to present research." Sarah reached into her bag and pulled out a data pad, its simple Earth design looking crude compared to the floating holographic displays that surrounded her. "I have authorization from Dr. Thexnar Voss himself. He approved my presentation request 3 months ago." The mention of the Galactic Medical Council's director caused a moment of silence. Dr. Voss was legendary throughout the galaxy, a Zephyrian whose species had contributed more medical advances than any other race in known history. His crystalline tentacles could analyze diseases at the molecular level simply by touch, and his knowledge spanned millennia. "Impossible," whispered a group of Vexian students nearby, their forms flickering with patterns of disbelief. The receptionist took the datapad with obvious reluctance, her slender fingers dancing over its surface. After a moment, her expression changed to one of confusion, then annoyance. "It appears the authorization is genuine," she said, as if the words tasted bitter. "Conference Room 12, Level 847. The Council will see you in 1 hour." Sarah thanked her and made her way to the transport tubes, aware that dozens of conversations had stopped as she passed. She could feel the weight of their stares, the barely suppressed laughter, the whispered comments about the primitive human who thought she could contribute to galactic medicine. The transport tube shot her upward through the building at breathtaking speed. Through the transparent walls, she caught glimpses of vast laboratories where alien scientists worked with technologies beyond human understanding. Cronin surgeons used sonic scalpels that could cut at the atomic level. Altarian pharmacologists manipulated matter at the quantum scale to create medicines that seemed like magic to human eyes. When the doors opened on level 847, Sarah found herself facing a corridor lined with portraits of the greatest medical minds in galactic history. Not one human face looked back at her from those walls. Conference Room 12 was already crowded when she entered. The circular chamber featured a central presentation area surrounded by tiered seating that rose toward the crystalline ceiling. Representatives from every major medical species in the galaxy were present, their various forms creating a rainbow of biological diversity. At the highest tier sat the members of the Medical Council itself. Dr. Thexnar Voss, dominated the center position, his massive form filling an entire section of seating. His crystalline tentacles moved in slow, hypnotic patterns as he observed the gathering. Beside him sat Dr. Kexathara, the renowned Altarian neural surgeon whose work on consciousness transfer had revolutionized treatment of brain injuries. On his other side, the ancient Cronan physician Dr. Morganic, whose stone body was said to contain the knowledge of 10,000 years of medical practice. "Colleagues," Dr. Voss's voice resonated through the chamber like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Today we welcome a representative from Earth to share what humans call medical research." The polite applause that followed was punctuated by barely suppressed chuckles and the musical tones that indicated amusement among several species present. Sarah walked to the center of the room, feeling smaller with each step. She activated her simple holographic projector, and the crude human images appeared in the air above her. Compared to the crystal-clear, three-dimensional displays she'd seen throughout the building, her presentation looked like cave paintings. "Thank you for this opportunity," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic system. "I'm here to discuss what we've learned about treating infectious diseases through traditional human methods." A Vexian physician in the third tier literally glowed with amusement, his entire form pulsing with light patterns that clearly indicated laughter among his species. "Traditional methods?" Dr. Kexathara's melodious voice carried a note of condescension. "Are you referring to your species' primitive chemical compounds? Your crude surgical techniques?" "Actually," Sarah continued, refusing to be intimidated, "I'm talking about approaches that have served humanity well for thousands of years. Techniques that focus on supporting the body's natural healing processes, rather than overwhelming them with artificial interventions." Dr. Morganic's massive stone head tilted slightly, a gesture that among Cronans indicated deep skepticism. "Young human, we have eliminated disease through precision genetic modification. We reshape organisms at the cellular level. What could your primitive teas and plant extracts possibly offer?" Sarah called up her first data display, showing infection rates and recovery statistics from human colonies. "On our frontier worlds, where advanced galactic medicine isn't readily available, we've maintained infection rates below 2% using traditional supportive care methods." 2%? A Zeridian doctor in the middle tier stood up, her insect-like features twitching with what passed for laughter among her species. "Our bio-nanites achieve 0% infection rates, 0% mortality from disease. Your numbers are not impressive." "Those nanites require constant updates and monitoring," Sarah replied calmly. "They need specialized facilities and trained technicians. What happens when those systems fail?" The question hung in the air for a moment before Dr. Voss's crystalline tentacles moved in a pattern that indicated mild interest. "An interesting theoretical concern, but our medical infrastructure has been stable for millennia." Sarah advanced to her next slide, showing data from recent human expeditions to previously unexplored worlds. "We've encountered 17 new pathogens in the last 5 years, organisms that our basic immune systems, supported by traditional treatments, have successfully fought off. How do your nanites perform against completely unknown threats?" "They adapt," Dr. Kexathara said dismissively. "Our technology learns and evolves faster than any biological pathogen." "But what if they can't adapt fast enough?" Sarah pressed. "What if you encounter something that operates on principles your technology wasn't designed to handle?" The chamber erupted in what could only be described as polite laughter. The Altarians' musical tones blended with the Cronans' rumbling chuckles and the Vexians' light patterns to create a symphony of derision. Dr. Voss raised one tentacle for silence. "Dr. Chen, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, the scenario you describe is purely hypothetical. The medical technology of the Galactic Consortium represents the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of advanced civilizations spanning millions of years. The likelihood of encountering a pathogen that could overcome our defenses is essentially zero. Sarah felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment, but she pressed on. I understand that my research may seem primitive compared to your advanced techniques, but I believe there's value in maintaining diverse approaches to medicine. Evolution has taught us that biodiversity is strength. Evolution, Dr. Morganic rumbled, is something we transcended long ago. We direct our own biological development now. We don't leave health to chance. Sarah activated her final slide, a simple diagram showing the human immune system. This is what serves as our primary defense against disease. It's not technological, it's not programmable, but it's been protecting life on Earth for millions of years, and it's never needed an update. The laughter that followed was louder this time, less polite. A young Altarian medical student actually pointed at the display, her silver features bright with amusement. "You're describing the most primitive defense imaginable," she called out. "Random white blood cells stumbling around hoping to bump into pathogens? It's like using a stone club to perform surgery." Dr. Voss's tentacles moved in a pattern that clearly indicated the meeting was drawing to a close. "Dr. Chen, we thank you for sharing your perspective. However, I think it's clear that human medical practices, while quaint, offer little to advance galactic medicine. Your approaches might suffice for your own species, but they have no place in serious medical discourse." Sarah gathered her materials, feeling the weight of hundreds of stares as she prepared to leave. "I understand your position," she said quietly. "I hope you never have reason to reconsider it." As she walked toward the exit, conversations resumed throughout the chamber, the various species returning to their discussions of quantum medicine and bioengineering. Sarah caught fragments of their conversations. "Imagine relying on biological immunity. How quaint that they still use herbs. Perhaps we should preserve human medicine in a museum somewhere." The transport tube carried her back down through the building, past the same advanced laboratories and research facilities she'd observed on her way up. But now they seemed different somehow, less impressive, more fragile. Sarah emerged into the reception hall to find it even busier than before. The same alien physicians moved with the same confident grace, discussing their latest breakthroughs in gene therapy and molecular reconstruction. The Altarian receptionist didn't even look up as Sarah walked past. Outside, the purple sky of Meridian Prime was deepening toward evening. Sarah stood on the steps of the Medical Consortium building, looking up at the towers that stretched toward the stars. Each one represented advances in medicine that humanity couldn't even comprehend, technologies that could reshape life itself at will. But as she walked toward the transport station that would take her back to the human embassy, Sarah couldn't shake a feeling that something was wrong with the picture she'd just witnessed. All that advanced technology, all those proud physicians discussing their mastery over biology and disease. It was impressive, certainly. It was far beyond anything humans had achieved, but it was also completely dependent on the continuation of complex, interconnected systems. Systems that required constant maintenance, constant updates, constant oversight by specialists who understood technologies that most practitioners simply took for granted. Sarah thought about the frontier colony she'd visited, where human doctors still carried medical bags filled with simple instruments and traditional medicines. Places where physicians had to rely on their knowledge, their experience, and their ability to work with whatever resources they could find or create locally. She thought about Earth's history of plagues and pandemics and how humanity had survived them all long before they had any advanced technology. They'd survived through cooperation, through learning, through adaptation, and through the simple but resilient biological systems that evolution had provided. The transport arrived, sleek and silent, its systems so advanced that Sarah couldn't even see how it worked. As she settled into her seat for the journey back to the embassy, she activated her personal communicator to record her thoughts. "Day 1 at the Medical Consortium," she began. Presentation was received as expected. Complete dismissal of human medical approaches as primitive and useless. I shouldn't be surprised. From their perspective, we really are using stone tools compared to their quantum scalpels. She paused, watching the advanced cityscape of Meridian Prime flow past the transport's windows. Everywhere she looked, she saw evidence of technologies that had completely transcended the natural order. Buildings that grew themselves, vehicles that moved without visible propulsion, citizens whose bodies had been modified so extensively that their original biological forms were barely recognizable. "But I can't shake the feeling that they're missing something important," she continued. "They've become so dependent on their technology that they've forgotten what it means to be truly self-reliant. They've created an incredibly sophisticated system, but it's also incredibly complex. And complex systems have failure points." The transport began to slow as it approached the embassy district. Through the windows, Sarah could see the smaller, more modest buildings that housed the representatives of younger species like humanity. Compared to the soaring towers of the advanced races, they looked almost primitive. "I hope I'm wrong," Sarah concluded her recording. "I hope their confidence is justified, because if something ever does go wrong with their perfect medical systems, I don't think they'll know how to fall back on anything simpler." As she stepped off the transport, Sarah looked back toward the medical district, where the lights of advanced laboratories continued to pulse through the gathering darkness. Somewhere in those towers, the greatest medical minds in the galaxy were pushing the boundaries of what was possible, reshaping life itself according to their will. But in her simple leather medical bag, Sarah still carried instruments that her predecessors had used for centuries. Tools that required no power source, no computer interface, no specialized training to maintain. Just knowledge, skill, and the wisdom that had been passed down from one generation of healers to the next. Tomorrow, she would begin her journey back to Earth, carrying with her the memory of laughter and dismissal from the most advanced medical minds in the galaxy. But she would also carry something else, a certainty that the simple, resilient approaches to healing that humanity had developed over millennia were not primitive relics to be discarded. They were treasures to be preserved. 3 months after Dr. Sarah Chen's humiliating presentation to the Galactic Medical Consortium, the first cases appeared on Vexios Prime, the homeworld of the ethereal Vexian species. It started as what their physicians initially dismissed as a minor metabolic irregularity affecting their light-based communication patterns. Dr. Lux Andra, one of Vexios Prime's most respected biophotonic specialists, was examining her third patient of the morning when she noticed the anomaly. The Vexian lying on the biobed before her should have been pulsing with the healthy rainbow patterns that indicated normal cellular function. Instead, her light emissions were stuttering, flickering between wavelengths in an erratic pattern that made no sense. "Patient presence with irregular photonic emissions," Dr. Luxandra noted into her quantum recorder, her own form glowing with the focused blue patterns that indicated concentration. "Bio-nanites report normal cellular function across all standard parameters." She activated a deeper scan, sending streams of diagnostic nanites into the patient's translucent form. The microscopic machines flowed through the Vexian's body like glittering rivers of light, each one designed to identify and report on thousands of different biological markers. "Nanites detect no known pathogens," she continued. "No genetic abnormalities, no toxin presence, all biological systems operating within normal ranges." But even as she spoke, the patient's light patterns grew more erratic. What had started as minor flickering was becoming violent flashes of random color, as if something was interfering with the very mechanism by which Vexians processed and emitted light. "Doctor," the patient whispered, her voice barely audible as her form began to dim, I can't maintain pattern coherence." Dr. Luxandra's own patterns shifted to urgent orange as she realized what she was witnessing. For a Vexian to lose pattern coherence was like a human losing the ability to think clearly. It was a fundamental breakdown of their most basic biological function. She immediately activated emergency protocols, flooding the patient's system with stabilizing nanites designed to support cellular integrity. For a moment, the patient's patterns seemed to steady. Then, without warning, they exploded into chaotic rainbow flashes before going completely dark. The patient had died, and Dr. Luxandra had no idea why. Within hours, similar cases were being reported across Vexios Prime. Healthy Vexians were suddenly losing their ability to maintain coherent light patterns, their forms flickering and failing before going completely dark. The bionanites that had protected their species from disease for over 1,000 years reported nothing abnormal. Every scan came back normal. Every test showed healthy biological function. Yet, Vexians were dying. Dr. Thexnar Voss received the emergency communication from Vexios Prime while he was reviewing surgical techniques with a group of advanced students on Meridian Prime. His crystalline tentacles stopped their hypnotic movement as the data flowed directly into his neural matrix. 17 deaths on Vexios Prime in the past 6 hours, all showing the same symptoms, all completely undetectable by standard medical technology. "Class dismissed," he said quietly, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that indicated serious concern among his species. The students filed out quickly, sensing their master's distress. Dr. E. Voss immediately contacted the other members of the medical council. Within minutes, the emergency session had convened in the primary crisis chamber, a massive spherical room at the heart of the medical consortium building where representatives from every major medical world could appear via quantum hologram. Dr. Kexathera materialized first, her silver form tense with worry. "Thexnar, I'm receiving similar reports from 3 Altarian colonies. Our people are experiencing complete neural cascade failure. The bio-nanites can't identify any pathogen." Dr. Morganic's massive stone form materialized next. 4 Cronin mining worlds have gone silent, he rumbled. Last transmissions described widespread cellular crystallization events. Our diagnostic systems show nothing. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy appeared in the chamber, each bringing worse news. The Zeridian insect worlds were reporting hive-mind disconnection syndrome. The crystalline Zephyrians were experiencing molecular dissolution. The energy-based plasma dancers were losing coherence and dissipating into space. Every species was being affected, every symptom was different, and every diagnostic system in the galaxy was failing to identify the cause. "This is impossible," Dr. Kexathera said, her melodious voice strained with disbelief. "Our medical technology represents millions of years of advancement. We have nanites that can track individual molecules. We have quantum scanners that can analyze matter at the subatomic level. How can something be killing our people without leaving any trace?" Dr. Voss's tentacles moved in slow, contemplative patterns. "Perhaps the question is not how it's avoiding our detection, but why our detection methods are inadequate." "That makes no sense," protested Dr. Morganic. "Our technology has eliminated disease. We've conquered biological uncertainty. We direct evolution itself." But even as he spoke, new reports continued to flood in. The plague, whatever it was spreading faster than anything in recorded galactic history. It jumped between species, between worlds, between biological systems so different that they shouldn't have been able to share pathogens at all. On Altaria Prime, the graceful silver-skinned inhabitants were collapsing as their enhanced neural networks suddenly began firing random patterns, creating feedback loops that destroyed their consciousness from within. The bio-nanites designed to protect and enhance their brains continued to function normally, reporting healthy neural tissue even as their hosts writhed in agony before falling into comas they would never wake from. On Cronus Major, the stone-bodied Cronans found their mineral flesh beginning to crumble without warning. Ancient physicians whose bodies had been stable for millennia suddenly began losing coherence at the molecular level, their carefully maintained crystal matrices dissolving into powder. Their diagnostic systems detected no structural weakness, no foreign agents, no reason for the catastrophic failure. The Zeridian hive worlds watched in horror as their collective consciousness began to fracture. Individual insects, who had been part of a unified mental network for their entire lives, suddenly found themselves isolated, cut off from the shared intelligence that defined their species. The bio-nanites that maintained their neural links showed perfect function, yet the links themselves were failing one by one. Dr. Voss found himself facing a crisis unlike anything in his 500-year career. The greatest medical minds in the galaxy were helpless against a threat they couldn't even identify. Their advanced technology, so sophisticated it seemed like magic to younger species, was proving completely useless. "We need to consider the possibility," he said slowly, "that we are dealing with something our technology was never designed to handle." "Impossible," Dr. Kexathera insisted. "Our nanites adapt to any threat. They learn and evolve faster than any biological system." "Then why are they failing?" Dr. Morganic asked bluntly. The question hung in the chamber like a death sentence. For the first time in millennia, the medical consortium faced a problem they couldn't solve with advanced technology. As if summoned by their desperation, reports began arriving from the youngest member worlds of the galactic community. The primitive species that still relied on biological immune systems and traditional medicine were also being affected by the plague, but their response was different. Human colonies reported casualties, but at a much lower rate than the advanced species. More importantly, their doctors were actually seeing the pathogen. Their crude scanning equipment, limited to basic cellular observation, was detecting something that quantum nanites missed entirely. "The pathogen appears to exist in a quantum state that conventional detection cannot measure," reported Dr. James Morrison from the human colony on New Terra. "It only becomes visible when observed through direct cellular interaction rather than technological mediation." Dr. Voss's tentacles stopped moving entirely, a sign of profound shock among his species. "Are you saying that our advanced detection methods are actually preventing us from seeing the threat?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Dr. Morrison replied. "The pathogen seems to exist in quantum superposition until it's observed directly by biological systems. Your nanites are too sophisticated. They're not observing it so much as trying to analyze it, which appears to cause it to remain in an undetectable state." The implications were staggering. The medical consortium's greatest achievement, the replacement of biological uncertainty with technological precision, had become their greatest weakness. Their nanites were so advanced, so refined, that they couldn't detect a pathogen that existed in the quantum gaps between their sensors. Dr. Kexthera's form flickered with patterns of disbelief. "You're suggesting that primitive observation methods are superior to our advanced diagnostics?" "I'm suggesting that different approaches see different things," Dr. Morrison replied calmly. "And right now, biological observation is seeing something that technological observation is missing." As the crisis deepened, more reports came in from worlds that still maintained some biological medical practices. A Krogan mining colony that had rejected bio-nanite enhancement due to religious beliefs was successfully treating the plague with traditional mineral baths and meditation techniques. A group of Altarian isolationists who lived without technological enhancement were fighting off the infection using ancient mental disciplines. The pattern was becoming clear. The more technologically advanced a medical system was, the more helpless it was against this new threat. The plague seemed specifically designed to exploit the gaps and assumptions built into sophisticated detection and treatment systems. Dr. Voss made a decision that would have been unthinkable just days before. Contact the human medical expedition that recently visited us. Dr. Sarah Chen. Request immediate assistance. The chamber fell silent. The idea of asking for help from the primitive humans whose research they had laughed at was almost too humiliating to consider. "Thexnar," Dr. Kexathera said carefully. "Surely you're not serious. What could they possibly offer that we cannot provide?" "They can see the enemy," Dr. Voss replied simply. "We cannot." The quantum communication array reached across space to the human embassy on Meridian Prime. The message was brief and transmitted on the highest priority channels available to the medical consortium. "Dr. Chen, this is Dr. Thexnar Voss of the Galactic Medical Council. We have a situation that requires your expertise. Please respond immediately." On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was in the middle of reviewing patient files at Johns Hopkins Hospital when her personal communicator chimed with an incoming priority message. She almost ignored it, assuming it was another routine update from the Galactic Medical Database that she maintained access to as part of her research. Then she saw the sender identifier and nearly dropped the device. Dr. Voss himself was contacting her. 3 months after his colleagues had laughed her out of the medical consortium building, the most respected physician in the galaxy was asking for her help. Sarah opened the message and read it twice before the implications sank in. A plague was spreading across the galaxy. Advanced medical technology was proving ineffective. Human doctors with traditional training were achieving better results. She thought back to her presentation, to the laughter and dismissal she had faced, to Dr. Voss's polite but condescending conclusion that human medicine had no place in serious medical discourse. Now, they needed her. Sarah Chen reached for her old leather medical bag, the same one she had carried to Meridian Prime 3 months before. The same instruments were inside, the same traditional tools that had been mocked as primitive relics. But as she prepared to answer the call that would change everything, she couldn't help but remember her final words to the medical council. "I hope you never have reason to reconsider your position." That reason had arrived. The plague that the galaxy's most advanced medical systems couldn't detect, couldn't understand, and couldn't treat was about to teach the universe a lesson about the value of simplicity, adaptability, and the ancient art of healing that required nothing more than knowledge, skill, and the wisdom to see what was actually there rather than what technology said should be there. Dr. Sarah Chen activated her communicator and began composing her response to Dr. Voss. Her answer was simple: "I'm on my way." Dr. Sarah Chen stepped off the emergency transport shuttle onto Meridian Prime to find a world transformed by crisis. The gleaming spires that had seemed so impressive 3 months earlier now pulsed with the harsh red light of emergency status. The elegant alien beings who had moved with such grace were now hunched with fear and exhaustion. The same Altarian receptionist who had called her primitive now looked up with desperate hope as Sarah entered the medical consortium building. Her silver skin had taken on a dull, grayish tint that suggested her own bio-nanites were struggling to maintain her enhanced physiology. "Dr. Chen," the receptionist said, her melodious voice cracked with strain, "Dr. Voss is waiting for you. Emergency authorization has been granted for all levels." The transport tube that carried Sarah upward moved past laboratories that bore no resemblance to the confident research facilities she had seen before. Through the transparent walls, she could see alien physicians working frantically over patients while holographic displays flashed failure alerts in dozens of languages. The quantum scanners that had seemed so advanced were running continuous cycles, searching desperately for something they couldn't find. Dr. Thexnar Voss met her at the entrance to the Crisis Command Center, his crystalline tentacles moving in patterns that clearly indicated exhaustion and desperation. The proud, confident being who had dismissed human medicine as primitive now looked at Sarah with something approaching reverence. "Dr. Chen," he said, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of gratitude, "thank you for coming. The situation has deteriorated rapidly since our last communication. Sarah followed him into the crisis center, where holographic displays showed the spread of the plague across the galaxy in real time. Red indicators marked worlds that had gone silent. Yellow indicators showed worlds where casualties were mounting. Green indicators, showing worlds that were successfully fighting the plague, were clustered around one type of location: planets where biological medicine was still practiced. "Show me a patient," Sarah said simply, setting her leather medical bag on the central command table, where it looked impossibly crude, surrounded by quantum computers and molecular analyzers. Dr. Voss led her to an adjacent medical bay, where a Vexian patient lay on a biobed, her translucent form barely flickering with the dimmest possible light patterns. Banks of advanced monitoring equipment surrounded the bed, their displays showing perfect cellular function even as the patient clearly lay dying. "All of our diagnostics show normal function," Dr. Voss explained. "The bio-nanites detect no pathogens, no genetic abnormalities, no toxins, yet she is dying, and we cannot determine why." Sarah opened her medical bag and pulled out a simple optical microscope, its brass fittings and manual focus controls looking like museum pieces compared to the quantum analyzers in the room. She prepared a basic slide from a small tissue sample and looked through the eyepiece. What she saw made her breath catch in her throat. "There," she said, stepping back from the microscope. "Look for yourself." Dr. Voss extended one of his crystalline tentacles toward the microscope, then paused. "I don't understand. How do I—" "Use your organic vision," Sarah said gently, "not your enhanced sensors. Just look through the eyepiece with your natural sight." The concept was so foreign to Dr. Voss that it took him several moments to understand what she meant. Like most advanced species, he had enhanced his natural senses with technological augmentation so long ago that he had forgotten what unmediated observation felt like. Slowly, carefully, he positioned himself over the microscope and looked through the simple glass lenses with his unenhanced optical organs. What he saw changed everything. The tissue sample writhed with activity. Spiral-shaped organisms, unlike anything in the Galactic Medical Database, moved through the cellular structure, phasing in and out of existence as if they existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They were beautiful in their alien geometry and absolutely terrifying in their implications. "By the ancient protocols," Dr. Voss whispered, "they're everywhere. How did our scanners miss this?" "Because they're not really trying to hide," Sarah explained, adjusting the microscope focus to show the organisms more clearly. "They exist in quantum superposition until they're observed directly. Your nanites are so sophisticated that they're not observing, they're analyzing. The act of analysis collapses the quantum state in a way that makes the organisms invisible to technological detection." Dr. Kexthera entered the medical bay at that moment, her silver form moving with the urgent grace of crisis. "Thexnar, the casualties on Alteria Prime have reached critical levels. Our entire medical infrastructure is failing." She stopped short when she saw Sarah at the microscope. "What is she doing here?" "She's saving us," Dr. Voss replied simply. "Dr. Chen, please explain to Dr. Kexthera what you've discovered." Sarah gestured toward the microscope. "The pathogen exists in quantum superposition. It can only be observed through direct biological interaction, not technological mediation. Your advanced detection systems are actually preventing you from seeing what's killing your patients." Dr. Kexthera's expression shifted through several phases of disbelief before she, too, looked through the simple microscope. The shocked silence that followed spoke volumes. "This is impossible," she finally said. "How can something so primitive detect what our quantum sensors cannot?" "Because sometimes the simplest tool is the right tool for the job," Sarah replied. "This microscope doesn't try to analyze or categorize, it just shows what's there." Sarah moved to the next phase of her examination, pulling out instruments that looked like antiques compared to the medical technology surrounding them. A simple stethoscope for listening to biological rhythms, a basic thermometer for measuring temperature variations, manual blood pressure cuffs that required no power source. The pathogen seems to interfere with the quantum states that your enhanced technology depends on, she explained as she worked. But it has trouble affecting purely biological processes. It's like it was designed specifically to exploit technological medicine. Dr. Voss's tentacles moved in patterns of increasing excitement. Are you saying this plague is artificial, designed as a weapon against advanced medical systems? I'm saying it's perfectly adapted to exploit the weaknesses of technology-dependent medicine, Sarah replied carefully. Whether that's natural evolution or intelligent design, I can't say. But I can tell you how to fight it. She opened her medical bag completely, revealing an array of traditional instruments and medications that drew stares of amazement from the alien physicians gathering in the medical bay. Word had spread quickly that the human doctor was actually seeing and treating the plague. First, we need to support the patient's natural biological functions without technological interference, Sarah explained, drawing up a dose of what looked like simple saline solution. This is a basic electrolyte balance solution. No nanites, no quantum enhancement, just minerals and water. She administered the injection manually, using a simple syringe that required her to gauge the dosage by experience rather than computer calculation. Almost immediately, the Vexian patient's light patterns began to stabilize. Impossible, Dr. Kexisthera breathed. How can mere salt water accomplish what our molecular reconstructors could not? Because your molecular reconstructors were fighting an enemy they couldn't see, Sarah replied. They were trying to fix problems that weren't there while missing the actual pathogen. This solution isn't trying to be clever. It's just giving the patient's immune system the basic resources it needs to do its job. Sarah continued her treatment, using techniques that Earth's doctors had developed over centuries of fighting disease without advanced technology. She supported the patient's natural metabolic processes. She helped maintain hydration and electrolyte balance. She used traditional herbs and compounds to boost immune function. Each intervention was simple, direct, and relied on biological processes rather than technological augmentation. And with each intervention, the patient's condition improved. The pathogen seems to have evolved or been designed to hide from technological observation and overwhelm technological treatment, Sarah explained as she worked. But it has no special defenses against natural biological resistance. It's like a computer virus that can crash any advanced system but is helpless against a pencil and paper. Dr. Morganic arrived as Sarah was administering her final treatment, his massive stone form moving with uncharacteristic urgency. "Human doctor," he rumbled, "my people are dying. Our mineral enhancement systems are collapsing. Can your methods help us as well?" Sarah looked up at the ancient Cronin physician, seeing fear in his boulder-like features for the first time. "Show me a patient," she said simply. The Cronin patient was experiencing molecular dissolution, his carefully maintained crystal matrix breaking down into component minerals. The advanced nanotechnology that had kept his species healthy for millennia was reporting perfect structural integrity even as his body literally crumbled. Sarah examined him through her simple microscope and found the same spiral organisms, but these had adapted to attack the crystalline bonds that held Cronin physiology together. She turned to her medical bag and pulled out a solution that made the assembled alien doctors gasp. "Vinegar," she announced. "Simple acetic acid. It will help restore the pH balance needed for proper mineral absorption." "You're going to treat molecular dissolution with vinegar?" Dr. Morganic asked in disbelief. "I'm going to give his natural systems the environment they need to rebuild," Sarah corrected. "The pathogen disrupts the quantum fields your nanites use to maintain crystal structure, but it can't stop basic chemical processes." She administered the treatment, along with a mineral supplement that her equipment could prepare from raw materials. Like the Vexian patient, the Cronin began to stabilize as his natural biological processes reasserted themselves. Word of Sarah's success spread through the medical consortium like wildfire. Desperate physicians from across the galaxy began arriving, bringing patients of every conceivable species and physiology. Each case presented unique challenges, but the underlying principle remained the same: support natural biological function while avoiding technological interference that the pathogen could exploit. For the Zeridian hive mind patients, Sarah used simple meditation techniques to help them reconnect with their collective consciousness through biological neural pathways rather than technological links. For the energy-based plasma dancers, she developed basic electromagnetic field generators that supported their coherence without the quantum complexity that the pathogen could disrupt. Each treatment was an improvisation, a combination of human medical knowledge with understanding of alien physiology. But every treatment worked because it relied on the fundamental biological processes that all life shared, rather than the sophisticated technological enhancements that made each species unique. As the hours turned to days, the Crisis Center became a classroom where the galaxy's most advanced physicians learned medicine from a human with a leather bag full of simple instruments. Dr. Voss himself took notes with a basic writing implement as Sarah explained how to observe patients without technological mediation. The key, Sarah explained to a gathering of the medical council, is to remember that we're treating living beings, not technological systems. The pathogen can exploit the interface between biology and technology, but it can't overcome natural biological resistance. Dr. Kexathera, who had been practicing with a simple stethoscope, looked up from her patient. "I'm hearing cardiac rhythms I never noticed before. Our enhanced sensors were filtering out variations they classified as irrelevant, but those variations are actually diagnostic indicators." "Exactly," Sarah said. "Your technology was so sophisticated that it was editing reality to show you what it thought you needed to see. Sometimes you need to see the raw, unfiltered truth." Dr. Morganic was learning to prepare basic mineral solutions without the molecular precision his species had come to depend on. "I had forgotten that healing could be so intuitive," he admitted. "We became so focused on controlling every variable that we lost the ability to work with uncertainty." As the treatment protocols Sarah had developed spread across the galaxy, the red indicators on the Crisis Center displays began to change to yellow, then green. Worlds that had been silent for days began reporting successful treatment of the plague using traditional biological medicine. The Altarian colonies found that their ancient mental disciplines, practiced without technological enhancement, could help patients resist the pathogen's effects on their neural networks. The Cronin mining worlds discovered that their oldest mineral processing techniques, practiced by hand rather than with quantum manipulators, could restore their people's crystalline structure. Even the most advanced species began to rediscover medical traditions they had abandoned millennia ago in favor of technological solutions. The galaxy was learning to heal itself using methods that had been dismissed as primitive superstition. Dr. Voss stood before the main display in the Crisis Center, watching as the last few red indicators turned green. The plague was not completely eliminated. Sarah had warned that it might persist at low levels, requiring ongoing vigilance, but it was no longer a threat to galactic civilization. "How long have we been dependent on our technology?" he asked Sarah as they watched the victory unfold. "Long enough to forget what you were like before," Sarah replied gently, "but not so long that you can't remember." She closed her medical bag and prepared to leave, knowing that her work here was done. The galaxy's physicians had learned what they needed to know. They would continue to practice advanced medicine, but they would do so with the wisdom that no technology could replace the fundamental skills of observation, understanding, and healing that were the true foundation of medicine. As Sarah walked through the medical consortium building for the final time, she noticed that the corridors were filled with physicians practicing with simple instruments. Quantum surgeons were learning to use manual scalpels. Bio-nanite specialists were studying basic anatomy texts. The greatest medical minds in the galaxy were becoming students again, rediscovering the ancient art of healing. The Altarian receptionist was waiting as Sarah reached the main lobby. Her silver skin had regained its healthy luster, and her eyes held a respect that had been absent 3 months earlier. "Dr. Chen," she said, her melodious voice warm with gratitude, "on behalf of the medical consortium, I want to thank you for saving us." "You saved yourselves," Sarah replied. "I just reminded you that you already had everything you needed." As Sarah's transport shuttle lifted off from Meridian Prime, she looked down at the city below. The medical district still pulsed with activity, but it was different now. The harsh red lights of emergency had been replaced by the softer glow of learning and discovery. The galaxy's most advanced civilization was rediscovering the wisdom of simplicity. In the months that followed, human medical schools across the galaxy would find themselves flooded with applications from alien physicians eager to learn traditional diagnostic and treatment techniques. The leather medical bag that had once been a symbol of primitive backwardness became a mark of essential knowledge. And in medical conferences throughout the galaxy, a new saying became popular among physicians of all species. The most advanced tool is often the simplest one that works. Dr. Sarah Chen returned to Earth carrying more than just the memory of her triumph. She carried the knowledge that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization might not be their ability to adapt to advanced technology, but their wisdom in never completely abandoning the simple, reliable methods that had served them for millennia. The galaxy had learned that progress was not always about moving forward. Sometimes it was about remembering where you came from and holding on to the essential truths that made survival possible when everything else failed. And in her simple leather bag, Dr. Sarah Chen still carried the same instruments that had saved a galaxy. Tools that required no power source, no computer interface, no quantum enhancement, just knowledge, skill, and the ancient understanding that the best medicine was often the simplest medicine, practiced with wisdom and compassion by healers who remembered that their first duty was to observe, understand, and above all, to do no harm.